This is a complete audiobook reading of the Money Code, Become a Millionaire with the Ancient Jewish Code, written by H.W. Charles in 2012. Chapter 1. Wisdom Code. Length of days is in her wisdom's right hand, and her left hand are riches and honor. Coded through obtaining wisdom, he will obtain wealth. The Tanakh says, "The crown of the wise is their riches." By your wisdom and discernment you have acquired wealth. Wisdom brings lasting wealth. Wisdom also helps an individual to succeed in whatever goals they pursue. The greater the wisdom, the greater and more frequent the success. At times it's as if success is effortless for the individual with great wisdom. Using a dull axe requires great strength, so sharpen the blade. That's the value of wisdom. It helps you succeed. Wisdom also provides protection. To a wise man, wisdom is better protection than 10 rulers in a city. The wise are better able to protect any wealth they do acquire. Wisdom is defined as the quality of having experience and being able to discern or judge what is true, right, or lasting. Wisdom is basically the practical application of knowledge. People with knowledge are not necessarily wise. Although they have an abundance of factual knowledge, they lack the practical know-how that is a mark of a wise person. A wise person has knowledge, applies it, and succeeds at living well. Philosopher Aristotle said, "Now it is thought to be the mark of a man of practical wisdom to be able to deliberate well about what is good and expedient for himself, not in some particular respect, e.g., about what sorts of thing conduce to health or to strength, but about what sorts of thing conduce to the good life in general." 1. Many philosophers agree with Aristotle. John Cake says, "What a wise man knows, therefore, is how to construct a pattern that, given the human situation, is likely to lead to a good life." Robert Nozick claims that wisdom is what you need to understand in order to live well and cope with the central problems and avoid the dangers and the predicaments human beings find themselves in. Philosopher Descartes wrote, "It is really only God alone who has perfect wisdom, that is to say, who has a complete knowledge of the truth of all things, but it may be said that men have more wisdom or less according as they have more or less knowledge of the most important truths." King Solomon is one of the central figures in Jewish history. The Tanakh credits Solomon as the builder of the first temple in Jerusalem. Solomon was the wisest and richest man of his time. Solomon's secret to his wealth was that he desired wisdom more than anything else. He desired an understanding heart. He didn't care much for wealth or honor, and yet that is what he got along with wisdom. God said, "I am giving you a wise and understanding heart, so that there has never been anyone like you, nor will there ever again be anyone like you. I am also giving you what you didn't ask for, riches and honor greater than that of any other king throughout your life." How is this to be understood practically? Considering that Solomon desired wisdom, yet he received both great wealth and honor, wisdom is really the key to wealth. With great wisdom comes great wealth and success. The Tanakh says that God grants wisdom to those he approves. For to the man who is good from God's viewpoint, he gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy. Descartes wrote that God has perfect wisdom, therefore we would be wise to ask God to provide us with wisdom. For the religious, follow in Solomon's footsteps and make a prayer for wisdom and the request for an understanding heart. The Talmud suggests, "Let them pray for mercy from him to whom is the wisdom, for it is said, for the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and discernment." For the non-religious, affirmative prayer, also called scientific prayer, is an effective prayer method. According to Rabbi Morris Lichtenstein, founder of the Society of Jewish Science, it provides the personal benefits of prayer without requiring the belief in a supernatural God who could suspend the laws of nature. Affirmative prayer is focusing on a positive outcome rather than a negative one. To use this form of prayer, a person would focus on the desired outcome and affirm it as if it has already happened. This is different from the common method of prayer, in which the person identifies the problem and requests that God eliminate it. Rather than pursuing wealth, pursue wisdom. The aggressive pursuit of wealth can lead to disappointment. Don't exhaust yourself in pursuit of wealth. Be smart enough to desist. If you make your eyes rush at it, it's no longer there. For wealth will surely grow wings, like an eagle flying off to the sky. Physicist Albert Einstein said, "Wisdom is not a product of schooling but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. Search for wisdom as you would silver and search for it as for hidden treasure. You can find wisdom through practicing humility, reading books, and from interacting with others. Humility is regarded as a prerequisite to increasing in wisdom. The Tanakh says, "First comes pride, then disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom." When you are humble, you accept that there is always still more for you to learn. You never feel like an expert in any one subject. Humble people are teachable, open to change, and never stop learning. The Tanakh says, "Poverty and shame are for him who won't be taught, but he who heeds reproof will be honored." When you are humble, you also feel that you can learn from everyone you encounter. Who is wise? One who learns from all people. The wise understand that they can learn something from everyone, even those deemed lower than them. The Talmud says, "Much have I learned from my masters, and more from colleagues than from my masters, and from my disciples the most." Director Rob Reiner once said, "I think Jews are the smartest people in the world." Studies conducted in the United States and Britain has shown that Jews have high IQs. The average IQ of American and British Jews is estimated at 110. Studies have shown that intelligence is a determinant of economic achievement. A study found that high intelligence is a promising explanation of why many Jews are so successful. Jewish parents tend to foster interest in how and why things happen, which might contribute to the development of thinking ability in Jews. The main reason that Jewish people are highly intelligent is that they value books and engage in study. The Talmud says, "What must a man do that he may become wise? Let him engage much in study." Jewish philosopher Samuel ibn Tibbon said, "Make your books your companions." He refers to his library as his best treasure, his best companion, and to his bookshelves as the most beautiful pleasure gardens. In Jewish tradition, books are buried instead of being thrown away. This shows the depth of respect that Jews have for books. Zig Ziglar, who built a wildly successful career in sales, said, "Rich people have small TVs and big libraries, and poor people have small libraries and big TVs." Educator Norman Lamb said, "In Judaism, there are 613 biblical commandments, and the Talmud says that the chief commandment of all is study. The most commonly studied books among all Jews are the Torah and the Talmud." The importance of Judaism's sacred texts extends far beyond their religious significance. Rav Tizer, a researcher and cultural historian of the Talmudic Jewish law, said, "Our holy scriptures are not only a religious book, but the foundation of our literature, our language, and our history, and the sole source of them." Both the Torah and the Talmud contain great wisdom. The Talmud says, "One that learns the Torah of one teacher ... acquires wealth and blessings." Jews take seriously all the laws in the Torah and obey them. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, "Without religion there is no true wisdom ... Without study of the Torah there is a lack of bread." The Talmud says, "He who fulfills the Torah in poverty shall in the end fulfill it in wealth. He who disregards the Torah in wealth shall in the end disregard it in poverty." The Talmud is considered to be Judaism's holiest book. It was written between the years 200 and 500 AD, and its authority takes precedence over the Torah in Judaism. The Talmud says, "My son, be more careful in the observance of the words of the scribes than in the words of the Torah." The Talmud is a source of great wisdom. The Talmud has become a handbook for doing business and seeking fortune, says Wang Jian, Associate Dean of the Center of Jewish Studies in Shanghai. Many Jews study a page of the Talmud each day, following a specific schedule, thus covering the entire text in approximately 7 years. Study of the Talmud is most intensive in yeshivot religious academies. There are 2 versions, the Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud. The Babylonian Talmud is regarded as the authoritative version. The authority of the Babylonian Talmud is also greater than that of the Jerusalem Talmud. In cases of doubt, the former is decisive. 10. The Tanakh says, "Wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished, but he that gathereth little by little shall increase." The Talmud explains, if one takes his studies by heaps at a time, he will benefit but little, but if one gathers knowledge little by little, he will gain much. Become completely focused on one subject and study the subject for a long period of time. Don't skip around from one subject to the next. It is important to constantly review what one has learned. Verbal repetition is powerful. The Jews are commanded to repeat the Shema, a section of verses from the Torah, twice a day, once in the morning prayer and once in the evening prayer. The Tanakh says, yes, keep this book of the Torah on your lips and meditate on it day and night, so that you will take care to act according to everything written in it. Then your undertakings will prosper and you will succeed. This is a way for the Jews to impress religious beliefs deeply on the mind. Jews also review the Torah year after year. The sages of the Talmud would repeat a new insight 40 times and repeat an especially vital idea 101 times. Many Jews understand that time is more valuable than money. You can always recover money, but you can never recover time. Jews value their time and understand that it is the most precious commodity. They spend their time acquiring wisdom, acquiring wealth, or contributing to society. The problem is that many people act like they will live forever on this earth and waste away their time in worthless pursuits. For example, try to imagine what would you do if you only had 1 month to live. Chapter 2. Tradition Code. Wealth and riches are in his house, and his merit endureth forever. Decoded, it applies to a man who studies the Torah and teaches it to others. The first Jews were very wealthy. The Tanakh portrays God as enabling men such as Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Solomon to achieve great wealth, and that this wealth was considered a clear sign of divine favor. Traditionally, Jews place a high value on education and occupational status. Jewish families encourage pursuit of wealth accumulation, high-income careers, and investing. It has become a cultural norm in Jewish families for parents to bring up their children to value wealth and success. The book Ethnicity and Family Therapy notes, success is so vitally important to the Jewish family ethos that we can hardly overemphasize it. We cannot hope to understand the Jewish family without understanding the place that success for men plays in the system. Historian Stefan Thernstrom asserts that the achievements of the Jews are the product of cultural values that they have brought with them and transmitted from generation to generation over a very long time. While many ethnic and religious groups are mainly focused on the afterlife and downplaying this world, Jews view wealth and success as a blessing and gift from God. The Tanakh says, everyone to whom God has given riches and wealth, along with the power to enjoy it, so that he takes his allotted portion and finds pleasure in his work. This is a gift of God. Religious Jews believe that all things come from God, as God owns everything. The Tanakh says, the Lord makes some poor and others rich, he brings some down and lifts others up. The blessing of the Lord brings wealth, and he adds no trouble to it. The Jews understand that the blessing of wealth was dependent upon obedience to the law and covenant. The laws in the Torah, if followed, would bring blessings. The Tanakh says, how joyful are those who fear the Lord and delight in obeying his commands. They themselves will be wealthy. If they listen and obey God, they will be blessed with prosperity throughout their lives. The basis of Jewish law and tradition is the Torah. The children of religious Jews are taught to read, learn, and observe the Torah. The Talmud says that there are 613 mitzvot commandments in the Torah. There are 248 positive commandments, do's, and 365 negative commandments, do-nots. Several Jewish scholars have compiled a complete listing of these commandments. One of the 613 mitzvot is to learn the Torah and teach it. Rabbi Isaac ben Eliakim said, a boy must be urged on, with rewards appropriate to his intelligence and age, until he realizes that he must study because it is the will of God. The Talmud says, study Torah again and again, for everything is contained in it. Religious Jews have the belief that they are God's chosen people ingrained into their subconscious from birth. The Torah says, if you listen closely, observing and obeying all his mitzvot which I am giving you today, God will raise you high above all the nations on earth, will make you the head and not the tail, and you will be only above, never below. This powerful belief motivates them to succeed. Author Henry David Thoreau said, it is what a man thinks of himself that really determines his fate. Spiritual teacher Gautama Buddha said, the mind is everything. What you think you become. The Jews' belief that they are God's chosen people is further strengthened by the various promises found in the Torah, such as, if you keep the commands of the Lord your God and walk in his ways, the Lord will grant you abundant prosperity. According to author Joseph Lifshitz, Jewish tradition insists that man can and should have a powerful impact on the material world in the Book of the Choicest Virtues. Rabbi Yahiel ben Yekutiel describes 24 important virtues. He lists honestly gained wealth as a virtue since it enables one to help the poor. He notes that Abraham was wealthy and used his riches to help others. Lisa A. Keister's study on religion's influence on wealth found that conservative Protestants, Baptists, Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists are at the low end of money accumulation. The study speculates this could be due to their low education achievement and literal Bible interpretation, leading to the conclusion that money accumulation is not very important or even preach poverty as a virtue. Pastor Dr. C. Thomas Anderson, author of Becoming a Millionaire God's Way, has helped over 100 people go from having nothing to becoming millionaires by using biblical wisdom regarding money management. He explains that many people, especially Christians, have an improper mindset, leading them to avoid wealth accumulation. Many Christians who view poverty as virtuous base their belief on the idea that Jesus lacked many possessions. Jesus may have lacked possessions, but he had money. Anyone with a significant amount of money usually has it managed. Judas managed the money for Jesus. Jesus also had the power to bring about abundance when he needed to and give generously to anyone he wanted to. He performed 2 recorded miracles in the Bible, the feeding of 5,000 people and the feeding of 4,000 people. What many Christians misunderstand is that the problem is generally not money. Jesus taught that the problem was attachment to possessions and dependence on money rather than dependence on God. For example, in the Bible book of Matthew, a rich young man asked Jesus what he must do to live forever. Jesus answered, "If you want to be perfect, go and sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." But when the young man heard this, he went away sad, for he had many possessions. This young man was highly attached to his possessions. There are many people who are attached to their material possessions. They have a lot of stuff in their homes and continue to purchase things they don't really need. Many schools of Greek philosophy held a belief that all physical matter was flawed. Only that which was spirit could be perfect. Many of the concepts of Greek thinking were incorporated into Christian doctrine. The belief that the Bible teaches poverty crept into Christian denominations, and people search for scriptures to support the view by taking verses out of context. 8. Negative views about money are common. Rich people are dishonest. Wanting money is not spiritual. Money is the root of all evil, or you cannot serve God and money. Whoever thinks such negative thoughts about money will not become wealthy. American poet Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "A man is what he thinks about all day long." Money is not the root of evil. Money is a neutral substance that can be used for good or for bad depending on who is using it and how it is used. Love people and use money should be everyone's motto in life. Those who love people acquire wealth so they can give generously. After all, money feeds, shelters, and clothes people. When money is loved beyond anything else, then there is a problem. This can cause a person in poverty to do unrighteous acts in an effort to acquire money. The truth is, poverty is the real problem. The Hasidic philosophy is that poverty causes transgression. Poverty causes people to do things they wouldn't otherwise do just so they can survive. Poverty leads some to prostitution, drug trade, violence, and murder. A common verse that people misunderstand comes from the King James Bible: "You cannot serve God and mammon." People serve mammon when they work very hard for their money their whole life, rather than making money work hard for them. Those who work hard for money their whole life are slaves to money. People buy a house on mortgage and a luxury car on finance, and then must work their whole life to keep and maintain their possessions. The key is to work extremely hard for a short period of time, 1 to 5 years, create abundant wealth, and then make money work hard for you through wise investments that yield a passive income for life. Take a lesson from the ants, you lazybones. Learn from their ways and become wise. They labor hard all summer, gathering food for the winter. In winter, the ants are no longer gathering food, but have an abundance of all that they need. In the same way, many entrepreneurs work extremely hard for the first few years while building their business. They work 24 hours, 7 days a week. Once they have built their business, they are able to sell it for a very high profit and then invest their money into an income-producing investment. Then, they have the time to devote themselves to more important pursuits: spiritual, education, charity, developing one's potential, raising a family, creating, innovating. there is much more to life than work. For example, why is it that people bring children into the world and then leave them to be raised by strangers? Children need their parents' full-time attention and love. Humans have so much potential and mental capability, yet it never fully develops due to a lack of time. Inventors and creators require time to create their masterpiece and usually don't yield income immediately until after completion. Contributing to society in a large way is the ultimate purpose of every human being, and this requires time away from working just to pay the bills. German novelist Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said, "Energy is the basis of everything." Every Jew, no matter how insignificant, is engaged in some decisive and immediate pursuit of a goal. It is the most perpetual people of the earth. The ultimate goal of many Jews is to gain wealth to have time for such things as study and developing one's full potential. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, "Where there is no money, there is no learning." The rabbis explain that unless people's stomachs are full and satisfied, they cannot study, grow spiritually, and do good works. Jews highly value having an abundance of money for the sake of caring for their families and for helping the needy. They also understand the importance of depending on God and avoiding a strong attachment to possessions. The advice in the Tanakh is clear: trust the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths smooth. Unlike Christianity, in which some view poverty as virtuous and desirable, Jews have generally viewed poverty negatively. Jewish texts have portrayed poverty as an unjustifiable burden. 9 The Talmud says, "Poverty in one's home is worse than 50 plagues." Judaism views poverty as pointless suffering. 10 The Tanakh says, "For the poor, every day is hard." The Talmud mentions that a poor person is considered dead. Jews know that anyone who can't support themselves or help others is hampered in what they can accomplish. The Tanakh says, "The ruin of the poor is their poverty." Scientist Jack Schwartz said, "The metaphor of Exodus is one that has dogged the Jews from the outset. Their very success attracts resentment. One of the most important factors that propels many Jews to success is they do not let others bring them down." Jews have been hated and resented throughout history, yet they continue to be successful because they don't let the opinions of others affect them. Politician Robert G. Allen said, "Don't let the opinions of the average man sway you. Dream and he thinks you're crazy. Succeed and he thinks you're lucky. Acquire wealth and he thinks you're greedy. Pay no attention. He simply doesn't understand." Chapter 3. Work. "Code mine is the silver, and mine the gold, saith the Lord of hosts. Decoded, let him pray for mercy from him to whom are the riches." The question of what a person should do to become rich is discussed in the Talmud. The Talmud says, "Let him engage much in business and deal honestly." The Tanakh teaches that the diligent will rule, while the lazy will be put to forced labor. Most Jews work for themselves and hire employees instead of being employees. They are commonly in the following businesses: product inventor, company founder, internet entrepreneur, trader, angel investor, real estate investor, real estate investor, real estate developer, hotel or casino owner, film producer, and newspaper or magazine publisher. Most non-Jews don't bother creating a company, an invention, or investing, and are employees forced labor. Jewish Austro-Hungarian journalist Theodor Herzl said, "The Jews had, as a matter of fact, long been all along the most ingenious entrepreneurs. It was only our own future that we had never built upon a business basis." The majority of Jews are company founders and CEOs. Jews create an idea and then hire craftsmen, designers, developers, and programmers to make the idea happen. As the company grows, they then hire more people. The Talmud says that blessed is he who has created all these to serve me. German politician Julius Streicher said, "It is an open secret that Jews do not work, but rather let others work for them." The Talmud says, "What labors Adam had to carry out before he obtained bread to eat? He plowed, he sowed, he reaped, he bound the sheaves, he threshed and winnowed and selected the ears, he ground them and sifted the flour, he kneaded and baked, and then at last he ate, whereas I get up and find all these things done for me." How many labors Adam had to carry out before he obtained a garment to wear? He had to shear, wash the wool, comb it, spin it, and weave it, and then at last he obtained a garment to wear. whereas I get up and find all these things done for me. All kinds of craftsmen come early to the door of my house, and I rise in the morning and find all these before me. Many Jews own some of the largest and most successful companies in the world. Some examples of Jewish-owned or founded American companies include the following: Google, Inc., Facebook, Wikipedia, eBay, Oracle Corporation, Microsoft, Dell, Goldman Sachs, New York Times, Diane von Furstenberg, Calvin Klein, Polo Ralph Lauren, Levi Strauss Co., Sears, Starbucks Coffee, Columbia Pictures, 20th Century Fox, Disney, Paramount Pictures, Warner Brothers Studio, Viacom, Miramax, DreamWorks, CBS, Universal Pictures, Fox Film Corporation, Vivid Entertainment, and HBO. Jews believe that people are creators, not consumers. In Judaism, the statement "man is created in God's image" is interpreted as meaning that God created the world, and man is the creator in the world. The Midrash says, all that was created during the 6 days of creation requires improvement. Jews understand this to mean that God left the world unfinished, inviting humans to be partners in creation. The role of humans is to improve and perfect God's creations through creation and innovation. The Midrash Tenchuma cites a dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Turnus Rufus. Turnus Rufus asked Rabbi Akiva, whose acts are greater, man's or God's? Rabbi Akiva answered that man's acts are greater. Turnus Rufus responded that the heavens and the earth are God's creations which man cannot equal. Rabbi Akiva then brings sheaves of wheat and cakes and says to Turnus Rufus the sheaves of wheat were made by God, while these cakes were made by man. He explains that man is not meant to eat wheat as it grows from the ground, but rather to process and develop it into a complete product. Rabbi Akiva then says, why does a child come out with an umbilical cord until the mother cuts it? Rabbi Akiva is trying to communicate to Turnus Rufus that natural, God-created states are not necessarily perfect. Judaism does not believe in taking the natural world as it is. Humans are meant to take the materials God provided and improve on them. There are imperfections in the world, and we need to perfect them. Successful Jews are persistent and don't let failure stop them. Successful businessman W. Clement Stone said, "Success is achieved and maintained by those who try and keep trying. Those who have achieved great things experienced many failures." Thomas Edison failed more than 1,000 times when trying to create the light bulb. When asked about it, Edison allegedly said he did not fail but discovered 1,000 ways of how not to make a light bulb. He learned how to create a light bulb through his constant failure. Malcolm Forbes said, "Failure is success. If we learn from it, continuing failure eventually leads to success. Those who dare to fail miserably can achieve greatly," said American President John F. Kennedy. Jewish American Leonard Bernstein said, "To achieve great things, 2 things are needed: a plan, and not quite enough time. You must plan to achieve goals. You must also use your time wisely. Write down or mentally take note of the steps of action you must take in order to achieve your goals, and then take action." The Jews are known for their perseverance, and this is what helps them achieve their goals. Perseverance means continuous persistence in a course of action in spite of difficulties, obstacles, or discouragement. Whenever you pursue a goal, it should be with complete focus. This means no interruptions. It's better to focus on work for 1 hour straight than for 2 hours with interruptions. Interruptions break our train of thought. Set aside a certain period of time when you will not interrupt the activity you're focusing on. Vilna Gaon, the great 18th century Jewish scholar, said that the first 3 hours and 59 minutes is stoking the furnace. By the 4th hour, the pot is boiling. If you take the pot off the fire, even for a few minutes, you have to start all over again. Besides their perseverance, the Jews are not afraid of oppression. Oppression can make a wise man stupid. Also, a gift can destroy understanding. They will work towards a goal regardless of any oppression and opposition. They rather achieve their goal with much pain than give up. The Tanakh says, "The thoughts of the wise are in the house of mourning, but the thoughts of fools are in the house of pleasure." Happiness does not result from pleasure, but rather from reaching one's goals. Happiness can be defined as the function of the effort we put forth toward the realization of life's goals. When we understand that our purpose in this world is to strive toward purposeful accomplishment, precisely then will we experience happiness. Don't let failure stop you from working towards success and wealth. As American President Abraham Lincoln said, Be sure you put your feet in the right place. Then stand firm, continue at your business, trying different ways of conducting it. The Tanakh says, in the morning sow your seed and don't slack off until evening, for you don't know which sowing will succeed, this or that, or if both will do well. For example, try purchasing from a different manufacturer. Try to price your business products or services lower if they aren't selling. One of the 613 mitzvot is not to overcharge. Jews that do not own a company select high-income careers: doctor, surgeon, anesthesiologist, orthodontist, dentist, lawyer, psychiatrist, engineering manager, sales manager, physicist, and airline pilot. Many non-Jews select low-paying jobs, typically hoping that they will move up the corporate ladder and get paid well eventually. Jews understand that they must not depend solely on God for a living, but they must work in a high-paying career or own a business and let God bless their work. The Midrash Tanchuma says, "Do not say, 'I need not work for my living,' but cast my hope on God who supports all living creatures. You must work for a livelihood and look up to God to bless the work of your hands." Many people have got caught up in the belief known as the law of attraction. They believe that by their thoughts, affirmations, and other attraction exercises they will become wealthy. However, the Tanakh wisely says, "In all work there is profit, but mere talk produces only poverty." Only through work it is possible to produce results that create wealth. Mere talk affirmations will not produce any results. A hard worker has plenty of food, but a person who chases fantasies ends up in poverty. The idea that wealth can come simply through affirmations is a fantasy. Maimonides, a Jewish philosopher and Torah scholar, claims that whomsoever has in his heart that he shall do no work, but rather be sustained from charity, defames the Lord's name, cheapens the Torah, extinguishes the light of faith, causes himself ill, and removes himself from the world to come. In the Torah, diligent workers are repeatedly rewarded with wealth. Idle hands bring poverty, diligent hands bring wealth. Jews have been the most successful and productive nation in history. They understand that they should seek out the most pleasant occupation and one that they enjoy. The Talmud says, "The world cannot be without a perfumer, nor without a tanner. Fortunate is the one whose trade is making perfume. Woe to the one whose trade is tanning." Only when one loves his career and is skilled at it can he truly succeed. Art critic John Ruskin said, "When love and skill work together, expect a masterpiece." Writer Dale Carnegie said, "People rarely succeed unless they have fun in what they are doing." Successful businessman Herman Cain said, "If you love what you are doing, you will be successful." Wealth is a planned result that requires productive work and dedication. The Tanakh says, "The plans of the diligent lead only to abundance, but all who rush in arrive only at want." If you love sleep, you will become poor. Keep your eyes open, and you'll have plenty of food. Jews understand that they must learn a craft and work well at it, or labor intelligently, hire craftsmen to do it for them, but that ultimately wealth comes from God. The Talmud says, "One should always teach one's child a clean and easy craft, and earnestly pray to God, to whom all wealth and property belong. For neither poverty nor wealth comes from one's calling, but from God, to whom wealth and property belong." So while a person must plan and labor, ultimately his success comes from God. Religious Jews believe that God enables them to succeed. God is giving you the power to get wealth, in order to confirm his covenant, which he swore to your ancestors, as is happening even today. Chapter 4, Investing. Code, bind up the money in thy hand. He coded one's money should always be ready to hand. One should always divide his wealth into 3 parts. Investing 1/3 in land, 1/3 in merchandise, and keeping 1/3 ready to hand. The Talmud teaches that one's money should always be ready to hand, meaning you should always have money ready for an investment, even if this requires you to sell some possessions and exchange it for money. Keister's study found that Jews invest early in life in high-risk, high-return financial assets such as stocks and bonds and build wealth quickly, while putting less emphasis on homeownership. Financial assets tend to produce a high return, leading to greater wealth accumulation. About 1/3 of Jews followed this path, compared to 7% of mainline Protestants, 4% of Catholics, and 0% conservative Protestants. Among conservative Protestants, the belief to trust in God reduces the inclination to invest. Jewish banker Edmund Safra said, "If you do not sow, how will you harvest?" Clergyman Joel Osteen said, If you want to rear financial blessings, you have to sow financially. Keister's study suggests that investing in financial assets accounts for much of the Jewish wealth advantage. Investing in high-risk, high-return financial assets, as opposed to relatively conservative investments, such as certificates of deposit, can have dramatic effects on total wealth accumulated over a lifetime. 1. In the journey towards wealth, a person may have to hold back on spending for a period of time and save as much as they can, even if that means living frugally. The Tanakh says, "Those who love pleasure become poor, those who love wine, and luxury will never be rich." The idea is to work hard and save for a period of time. Once a large amount of money has accumulated, it can then be invested into financial assets. A wise investment will yield a high return and be able to support one's desired lifestyle. That is why Jewish hedge fund manager David Einhorn said, "A penny saved is better than a pound earned." Consumerism has become a great problem. People consume too much while saving very little. The Tanakh says, "The wise have wealth and luxury, but fools spend whatever they get." Once an individual has saved and invested successfully, their return on investment will support their desired lifestyle. The option is then available to continue to work or to pursue one's goals and philanthropies. We should also save in order to meet future needs. This is not hoarding wealth, but making wise provision for the days ahead. God directed Joseph to save for the future. You may also want to invest for future generations. Plant a money tree for your children. In the Talmud, there is a story of a sage that spots a man planting a carob tree. He asked him, "How long will it take for this tree to bear fruit?" 70 years, replied the man. The sage then asked, "Are you so healthy a man that you expect to live that length of time and eat its fruit?" The man answered, "I found a fruitful world, because my ancestors planted it for me. Likewise, I am planting for my children." Saving can be seen as planting seeds. It takes time to see the growth, but it provides a rich harvest. The Tanakh says, "He that gathereth little by little shall increase." Then, although your beginnings were small, your future will be very great indeed. The Tosefta teaches, small coins add up to large sums. High-interest savings accounts are useful for saving up funds for future investments. These offer better rates than many standard bank accounts. Online-only banks offer the best interest rates, and since they have no debit access or check-writing privileges, they will prevent you from withdrawing funds prematurely. Certificates of deposit are another good option for use as a savings account. The money is off limits until the CD matures, which can be from 3 months up to a few years. If you redeem the CD prematurely, you'll pay a penalty. A money market account, or I-bonds, are other good options. Once savings accumulate and are invested wisely, they will in many cases produce a large return or generate a steady passive income to support one's desired lifestyle. It's such a simple wealth strategy, and yet many do not have the self-control to withhold their spending habits. Many have become accustomed to being able to buy what they cannot afford on credit cards. They must then spend their precious time working to pay off their purchases. The Chofetz Chaim, a book on Jewish laws, says, "Time is money, but I say money is time. For every luxury cost, so many precious hours of your life hold back on purchasing all you desire, until you can truly afford it." One of the 613 mitzvah is not to follow the whims of your heart or what your eyes see. Religious Jews are protected from serving creditors. One of the 613 mitzvah is not to borrow with interest. Unwise borrowing puts you in a position of servitude. Much money has been lost due to unwise choice of friends and an extravagant lifestyle that one can't pay for. The Tanakh says, "Don't be one of those who guzzle wine or of those who eat meat to excess, for both drunkard and glutton will become poor, drowsiness will clothe them with rags." One of the most prominent of financial warnings found in the Tanakh is against putting up security for an individual. He who gives his hand to guarantee a loan for his neighbor lacks good sense. Putting up security for another is the process whereby one assumes responsibility for the debts of another. This is especially true if our guarantee is for an unspecified or unlimited amount of money. As the Tanakh puts it, we may find ourselves in a position of not having the resources to cover the debts of another. Don't be one of those who give pledges, guaranteeing loans made to others, for if you don't have the wherewithal to pay, they will take your bed away from underneath you. There are better ways to handle the needs of those who ask you to guarantee their debts. The first would be to make a personal loan and have assurance of repayment in the form of collateral. In this way, the potential loss would be limited. A gift would be another way of helping. Educate yourself and plan ahead before making investments. The Tanakh says, "The thoughtless believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going. The plans of the diligent lead only to abundance." Never rush into an investment without prior research and deliberation. The Tanakh says, without deliberation, plans go wrong. One rushing to get rich will not go unpunished. He who is greedy rushes after riches, not knowing that want will overtake him. All who rush in arrive only at want. However, do not stop yourself from investing in good opportunities either. He who keeps watching the wind will never sow. He who keeps looking at the clouds will never reap. Make sure to consult as many investment advisors as you can before finalizing an investment decision. The Tanakh teaches, without deliberation, plans go wrong, but with many advisors they succeed. It is unwise to trust in your own judgment. He who trusts in himself is a fool, but he who lives by wisdom will escape. Many people have made bad financial investments because they based their decision on their own judgment and pride. The Tanakh warns, pride goes before destruction and arrogance before failure. Before being ruined, a person's heart is proud. The Tanakh provides wise investment advice. Divide your investments among many places, for you do not know what risks might lie ahead. Divide what you have into 7 parts, or even into 8 shares. Simply speaking, this is financial diversification. It is wise to invest in 7 or 8 different types of investments. A collectible is any physical asset such as stamps, coins, or fine art. Collectibles can, in some cases, appreciate in value over time because they become rare and desirable. Collectibles can take a very long time to increase in value. Unlike other investments, collectibles offer no income until they are sold. The one advantage is that most collectibles increase in value along with inflation. The Talmud recommends investing in business. It says, 100 zuz in business means meat and wine every day. A common method of investing in business is through purchasing stocks. Common stock is ownership in part of a company. You are entitled to a portion of the company's profits. The more shares you own, the larger the portion of the company you own. Over the long term, no investment provides better returns at a reasonable risk than stocks. History has shown that stocks average 11 to 12% per year. Purchasing stock in a well-established and profitable company reduces risk. Preferred stock represents ownership in a company, but it usually does not give the holder voting rights. With preferred shares, investors are guaranteed a dividend forever, while common stocks have variable dividends. One of the main advantages to being a preferred stockholder is that, should the company experience financial trouble and have to liquidate, you would be paid off before the common stockholders. The major objective of a preferred stock is to provide a much higher dividend than that provided by common stock. Preferred stock is also much less volatile than common stock and less risky if the company goes bankrupt, since a preferred shareholder is far more likely than a common shareholder to get at least some of their money back. A closed-end fund is an investment fund that issues a fixed number of shares in an actively managed portfolio of securities. Most closed-end funds specialize in either stocks or fixed-income securities and pursue a consistent objective, such as capital appreciation or current income. An annuity is a series of fixed-amount payments paid at regular intervals over the specified period of the annuity. A deferred annuity means that the series of annual payments will not begin until a later date. An immediate annuity means that the income payments start right away. There are 2 different types of annuities: fixed annuity and variable annuity. Fixed annuity provides a fixed investment income. Variable annuity guarantees a minimum payment, and the remaining income payments can vary depending on the performance of your annuity investment portfolio. Annuities allow you to invest in a managed portfolio of stocks, bonds, money market funds, or any combination thereof. The performance of this portfolio determines the annual payment you will receive. Annuities are advantageous for those looking for a relatively low-risk investment with a fairly good return. An American depository receipt is a stock that trades in the United States but represents a specified number of shares in a foreign corporation. ADRs are an excellent way to buy shares in a foreign company. ADRs offer a good opportunity for capital appreciation as well as income if the company pays dividends. A unit investment trust (UIT) is a registered trust in which a fixed portfolio of income-producing securities is purchased and held to maturity. UITs usually hold a large amount of municipal bonds, but they may also consist of government bonds, corporate bonds, or even common stocks. UITs are fairly low-risk investments, but stock UITs depend heavily on the performance of the stock market. Treasuries are tax-exempt and considered safe investments. Treasury bills mature in less than a year. Treasury notes mature between 2 and 10 years. Treasury bonds have a maturity of more than 10 years. The best time to buy treasuries is when interest rates are relatively high. When you buy a corporate bond, you are loaning your money to a corporation for a set period of time known as the maturity. The risks associated with corporate bonds depend entirely on the issuing company. The risk of losing your principal is very low if you only buy bonds in well-established companies with a good track record. The best time to buy a corporate bond is when interest rates are relatively high. Real estate investing allows the investor to target his or her objectives. For example, if your objective is good investment returns, then buying a piece of property in a good neighborhood will achieve this goal. A rental property can provide regular income. There are significant risks involved in holding real estate. Property taxes, maintenance expenses, and repair costs are just some of the costs of holding the asset. It can also sometimes be hard to sell the property quickly. When buying property for the purpose of investing, the most important factor to consider is the location. REITs sell like stocks on the major exchanges and invest in real estate directly through properties or mortgages. There are 3 main categories: equity REITs, mortgage REITs, and hybrid REITs. Equity REITs invest in and own properties. Their revenues come principally from their properties' rents. Mortgage REITs deal in investment and ownership of property mortgages. These REITs loan money for mortgages to owners of real estate or purchase existing mortgages or mortgage-backed securities. Their revenues are generated primarily by the interest they earn on the mortgage loans. Hybrid REITs combine the investment strategies of equity REITs and mortgage REITs by investing in both properties and mortgages. The average dividend yield of a REIT is 9 to 12%. REITs are usually less volatile and provide some degree of inflation protection. Dividends are higher than those of common stocks. The performance of an REIT follows the real estate market. Mortgage rates tend to do poorly as interest rates rise. Once you accumulate a significant fortune through investing, you must diversify in different banking regions and currencies. The majority of people have virtually all of their banking and investments within their home country and in just one currency. This can be risky during troublesome times. It is very important to take advantage of international banking and investment opportunities. An international bank is a financial entity that offers financial services to foreign clients. Many wealthy individuals around the world use international banks to shelter their money from their home country's income taxes. However, customers must report their income with their bank to make sure that tax avoidance doesn't turn into tax evasion. Chapter 5 Law. Code: Cursed is the ground for thy sake, and toil shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Decoded: Blessed is he that discerneth secrets. American lawyer Rufus King said, "The law established by the Creator, which has existed from the beginning, extends over the whole globe, is everywhere, and at all times binding upon mankind. Natural law, or the law of nature, is a system of law that is determined by God. Law stands for order. Laws govern everything in the universe and on earth. The law of gravity will work on every single human, every single time. Those who refuse to obey the law of gravity will perish. People with financial lack require order in their lives. Therefore, following certain laws will lead to advancement and success in life." Many have heard the common saying, "What goes around comes around." This law is also known as the iron law of human destiny because it is so profound and powerful. Isaac Newton called it the law of action and reaction. He said, "To every action there is always an equal and opposite reaction. This universal and infallible law of justice holds everyone responsible for his or her actions." The Tanakh says, "Also to you, Adonai, belongs grace, for you reward all as their deeds deserve." All actions have consequences, as do all inactions. Distilled down to the simplest possible terms, this law states that for every effect in one's life, there is a specific cause. The Talmud says that God gave Noah and all his descendants 7 universal laws to obey. In Judaism, the 7 laws of Noah are called the Noahide laws. These laws are to be followed by all non-Jews if they are to be blessed. The Tanakh says, "Blessed is he who keeps the law." Not much is expected of those who are in poverty due to the fact that they do not have knowledge of the Noahide laws. The Tanakh says, what can we expect from the poor? They are ignorant. They don't know the ways of the Lord. They don't understand God's laws. Poverty and shame are for him who won't be taught, but he who heeds reproof will be honored. According to Judaism, any non-Jew who adheres to these laws is regarded as a righteous Gentile. Adherents are often called children of Noah or Noahides and may be found in Jewish synagogues. Rabbi Shmuley Boteach says, "The Jews have the 613 commandments of the Torah to observe. Non-Jews have the Noahide commandments, included within which are prohibitions against idolatry, theft, murder, adultery and incest, cruelty to animals, as blasphemy and the responsibility to establish and maintain courts of justice in a just society. Wealth and peace are 2 of the rewards granted for obeying God's laws. The laws have principles behind them that need to be understood. The first law is to acknowledge that there is only one God who is infinite and supreme above all things. Do not replace that infinite one with finite idols. The second law is to respect God. As frustrated as you may feel due to your life circumstances, do not vent it by cursing God or unnecessarily uttering his name. The Talmud says, the unnecessary utterance of the divine name always leads to poverty. People ruin their lives by their own foolishness and then are angry at the Lord. The third law is to respect human life. The fourth law is to respect the institution of marriage. The marriage of a man and a woman is a reflection of the oneness of God. Disloyalty in marriage destroys oneness. The fifth law is to respect the rights and property of others. Be honest in all your business dealings. The sixth law is to respect God's creations. After the Great Flood, man was permitted to consume meat, but with the following warning: do not cause unnecessary suffering to any creature. The seventh law is to maintain justice. Justice is God's business, but we are given the charge to lay down necessary laws and enforce them whenever we can. Non-Jews or non-religious people will benefit from following the Noahide laws, as well as some of the 613 mitzvot associated with business and work. Religious Jews understand the importance of honesty in business matters. The Orthodox Jewish Bible says, "Wealth gotten by dishonesty shall be diminished, but he that gathereth incrementally shall have an increment." Deal honestly with clients or customers. Treat employees fairly and pay them on time. One of the 613 mitzvah is to not to delay payment of wages past the agreed time. The Tanakh says, things go well with the person who is merciful and lends, who conducts his affairs with fairness. There are some who acquire great wealth through dishonest means such as fraud. However, evil people get rich for the moment, but the reward of the godly will last. Enduring wealth can only be acquired through working honestly and not hurting others. The Tanakh says, food obtained by fraud may taste good, but later the mouth is full of gravel. Many cases have been reported in the news exposing very wealthy individuals and companies dealing dishonestly. Tainted wealth has no lasting value. Greed leads to poverty. The Tanakh says, greedy people try to get rich quick but don't realize they're headed for poverty. Greed inclines people to act impulsively in hopes of gaining more. The Tanakh warns, wealth gotten by worthless means dwindles away, but he who amasses it by hard work will increase it. A primary commandment that religious Jews obey is to rest from any work on Sabbath, which is observed from sundown on Friday until Saturday night. Religious Jews start their Shabbat ritual by placing several coins in a charity box. The woman of the house lights 2 Shabbat candles before sunset, representing the 2 commandments: remember and observe. They extend their hands over the candles, draw them inwards 3 times in a circular motion, and then cover their eyes and say the following blessing: Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments, and commanded us to kindle the light of the holy Shabbat. Then, while eyes are still covered, Jews tend to pray for their desires. This ritual, performed by the woman of the house, officially marks the beginning of Shabbat. Until marriage, women and girls light 1 candle. After marriage, women light at least 2 candles. Ronald Owen Perelman is one of the wealthiest individuals in the world, with an estimated wealth of $12 billion. Judaism has a strong influence in his life. He strictly observes the Sabbath, spending 3 hours every Saturday in prayer. Non-Jews would greatly benefit from observing the Sabbath, although they are not obligated to follow the same strict ritual as the Jews. Humans need rest for every 6 days of work. A complete day of rest regenerates the body and mind and prepares a person for another 6 days of work. The rabbis have prohibited travel, buying and selling, and other weekday work tasks that would interfere with the spirit of Sabbath. The Tanakh says, "Blessed are those who honor my Sabbath days of rest and keep themselves from doing wrong." The Talmud explains that the wealthy merit their wealth because they honor the Sabbath. The Talmud teaches that a hard worker and a lazy worker profit if they work all week and do not work on Sabbath. There is also a hard worker and a lazy worker who gets deprived due to working on Sabbath. Working on Sabbath will not benefit a person. Rabbi Tichlifa said all of a person's income is determined for him yearly. The sages tell us that wealth is among the things decreed by fate or by natural design. This means that no person will ever make himself wealthier by working on Sabbath. Chapter 6. Tithe. Code: Thou shalt surely tithe. Decoded: Give tithes, so that thou mayest become wealthy. Tithe, so that you will become rich. Of the 613 mitzvot, one is to give a tenth to the poor and another is not to withhold giving to the poor. Religious Jews give at least 10% of their income to the poor. In ancient times, the number 10 was considered the number of increase. Tithe means 1/10. Tithing is an ancient Jewish formula for becoming wealthy. The early Jews become one of the richest nations in the world due to tithing. Abraham, known first as Abram, gave a tenth of everything. Jacob vowed to give a tenth of everything he acquired. American oil industrialist John D. Rockefeller, regarded by many as the wealthiest man in history, worth over $300 billion in today's figures, said, "I never would have been able to tithe the first $1 million I ever made if I had not tithed my first salary, which was $1.50 a week." Rockefeller tithed on all of his earnings for his entire life. The Talmud tells us, "Tithe so that you will become rich." Tithing is mentioned more than once in the Talmud, indicating how important this code is for acquiring wealth. Rabbi Akiva said, "Tithing is a qualification for wealth." The Chofetz Chaim tells us that the process of tithing is like a partnership between the donor and God. The donor is a partnering with God in sustaining the world. At the same time, by tithing, the donor brings God in as a partner in his business affairs. Jews believe that the blessing of God allows one to get wealth. The Tanakh says, "The blessing of Adonai is what makes people rich." John D. Rockefeller tithed more than $500 million in his lifetime, offering critics a standard reply: "God gave me the money." The Mishnah says, "Pray to him to whom all wealth and property belong to God, because every craft contains the potentialities for both poverty and wealth. Neither poverty nor wealth is due to the craft, but all depends on merit. The wealthy merit wealth because they give tithes, as it is written, which means give tithes, so that thou may become wealthy." The book Jewish Wisdom for Business Success says, "Try to build your merit." This involves praying, giving to charity, and helping others. The more merit you are able to garner, the more divine energy you attract, and the more successful you will be in every area of life. The Talmud tells us that it is permitted to test God to see if we will really become wealthy through tithing. The Talmud tells us that it is forbidden to test God in all cases, except for tithing, as it is written, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and test me with this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open for you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, until it is beyond enough." Beyond enough means until your lips are tired from saying enough. However, the guarantee that one will becoming wealthy through tithing is only applicable if exactly 1/10 or more of one's weekly, monthly, or yearly income is separated and given based on an exact accounting system. The guarantee of wealth is also only applicable if the entire tithe is given to poor people who study the Torah or those in poverty who require these funds to sustain their families with the basic necessities of life. The obligation to tithe can also be fulfilled by giving money to healthcare institutions, to synagogues, or to educational institutions. Some Jews have a custom to give half of their Maser obligation to impoverished relatives and the remaining to charities. If a member of your people has become poor so that he can't support himself among you, you are to assist him as you would a foreigner or a temporary resident, so that he can continue living with you. 1/10 of one's income may be separated and put aside on Sabbath. All recurring income is tithed, but assets are tithed on only once, not annually. Jews give 1/10 of their income after payment of taxes. It is recommended to give the first fruits of all your income, meaning to tithe first, before making any bill payments, but after taxes. Chapter 7, Charity. O, though I have afflicted thee, I will afflict thee no more. He quoted, even a poor man who himself subsists on charity should give charity. If he does that, heaven will not again inflict poverty upon him. One of the 613 mitzvot is to give to charity. Some Jewish sages have said that giving charity is the highest of all commandments, equal to all the commandments combined. Even a poor person who himself survives on charity should give to charity. Jewish sage Rav Yosef taught that the Tanakh verse, I will afflict you no more, means that a person who gives charity will no longer be afflicted with poverty. The Jewish term for helping the poor is often translated as charity. Some have tried tithing and have seen no immediate differences in their finances. The Tanakh speaks of tithes and offerings, which makes a distinction between a tithe and an offering. An offering is anything given beyond the tithe. The Tanakh suggests that there were a few obligations to give: tithe, offerings, and voluntary offerings. Many Jews give between 20 to 30%. According to Vilna Gaon, great wealth is guaranteed for someone who gives more than a 1/10 to charity. However, according to Jewish law, Jews are forbidden to give away all of their wealth. Jews, who are only about 2% of the American population, are 30% of America's most generous donors. In the 2006 issue of Business Week, the list of the 50 most generous philanthropists included at least 15 Jews. A 2003 study reported in the Jewish Journal found that 24.5% of all people who donate more than $10 million a year to charity are Jewish. The study reported in the Jewish Journal indicated that Jews who give more than $10 million a year to charity found that only 6% of their donations went specifically to Jewish causes. The most generous and most wealthy Jewish donors of all time were the Rothschilds. According to Judaism, the benefit of giving to the poor is so great that a beggar is actually doing the giver a favor by allowing the person to give. Jewish diarist Anne Frank said, "No one has ever become poor by giving." The Tanakh says, "Some give freely and still get richer, while others are stingy but grow still poorer. The person who blesses others will prosper. He who satisfies others will be satisfied himself." The verse that says, "There is one who scatters and yet is given more," is interpreted by many of the Jewish commentators as referring to one who spends his money on the needy. Wealth and riches are in his house. He distributes freely. He gives to the poor. CJB, Psalm 112:3-9. Jewish sage Rabbi Abaho explains that, if you see a person distributing his money to charity, know that his assets will increase. The Tanakh makes it clear that anyone who gives tzedakah will be repaid for every penny that he gives to charity, and that he will become wealthy over time. The Tanakh says, "He who is kind to the poor is lending to Adonai, and he will repay him for his good deed." Give generously to the poor, not grudgingly, for the Lord your God will bless you in everything you do. The Talmud describes different levels of tzedakah. The levels of charity from lowest level to highest level. 1. Giving begrudgingly. 2. Giving less than you should but cheerfully. 3. Giving after being asked. 4. Giving before being asked. 5. Giving when you do not know the recipient's identity, but the recipient knows your identity. 6. Giving when you know the recipient's identity, but the recipient doesn't know your identity. 7. Giving when neither party knows the other's identity. 8. Enabling the recipient to become self-reliant. The Tanakh says not to hold back when someone asks you to give to them. The Talmud tells us the story of Abba Hilkiah, who was known for his ability to induce rain by means of prayers. When the Jewish people needed rain, the rabbis would come to his home and ask him to pray for rain. During one period of drought, 2 rabbis came to him to ask him to pray for rain. Abba Hilkiah and his wife went up to the roof, and each stood in a separate corner praying to God that he send rain. To the surprise of the 2 rabbis, the rain clouds did not appear from the direction of Abba Hilkiah's corner, but from that of his wife's corner. The rabbis asked, "Why did the rain clouds appear first in your wife's corner?" Abba Hilkiah answered, "The prayer of my wife was heard first, because she is in the house all day long. When a poor or hungry man comes to the door, she gives him something to eat, and she stills his hunger immediately. On the other hand, when a poor man comes to me in the field, I can only give him a coin, and he has yet to go and purchase some food with it, so that the actual benefit comes a little later. That is why my wife's prayer was answered before mine. Her charity is more effective than mine." This story encourages us to share our food, even more so than our money. He who is generous is blessed, because he shares his food with the poor. Jewish homes or offices usually have a push key, which is a charity box for putting in and collecting coins for the poor. Coins are dropped in typically on a Sabbath. The Chafetz Chaim says that it is praiseworthy to give smaller, but more frequent amounts to the poor. It is common for religious Jews to give tzedakah several times daily, in addition to making large contributions periodically. Non-Jews can also keep a pushka box in their home and office and drop a few coins in the pushka every Sabbath, or even every day if possible. When a sufficient amount of coins is collected, it can be distributed to the poor or used to buy food for the poor. The law of cause and effect is a law stating that for every action there is always an effect. You must give before you receive. The Tanakh says, "He who gives to the poor will lack nothing, but he who hides his eyes will get curses in plenty." American businessman Ken Blanchard said, "My own experience about all the blessings I've had in my life is that the more I give away, the more that comes back." That is the way life works, and that is the way energy works. The return a person gets from giving charity is not just money but also a long life and protection from an early death. The following story is found in the Talmud. It happened that a pious man who used to spend much in charity, while aboard a ship encountered a great storm, and the ship foundered. Rabbi Akiba saw him go down. Rabbi Akiba then encountered him at another time. Rabbi Akiba said to him, "Did you not sink into the sea?" He answered, "Yeah." Rabbi Akiba then asked, "Who brought thee out of the sea?" He answered, "The charities that I have given have saved me from the sea. When I went down in the deep, I heard the noise of the waves. It seemed to me that they said to each other, 'This man has done charity all his days, and they actually threw me on land.'" Rabbi Akiba then arose and said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who has chosen the words of the Torah and the words of the sages, for they are preserved everlastingly. As it is written, cast thy bread upon the face of the waters, for after many days wilt thou find it again. It is written again, charity will deliver from death." Jews understand that the purpose of life is not only to create, innovate, accumulate wealth, and improve on the material world, but also to care for those in need. American industrialist and philanthropist John D. Rockefeller said, "I believe it is every man's religious duty to get all he can honestly and to give all he can." Clergyman John Wesley summed it up perfectly: earn as much as you can, save as much as you can, invest as much as you can, give as much as you can. Lord Francis Bacon said, "Money is a great treasure that only increases as you give it away."